Hello, this is part 2 of the video, which takes a deep dive into the writing multiple choice questions from the TSI 2.0. There is a part 1 video. The part 1 video covers the essay revision questions. It's part of the same slideshow, but I made it into 2 videos because it's just was going to be too long otherwise. So I'm going to skip ahead. The one thing I did add to this is I added the skills that's covered on the entirety of the test. This slide is actually in this slideshow a few times, just because this is how you can link to 6 different slideshows that you can use with students to teach these particular skills if you need some resources for that. And I put it because these are skills that are covered throughout the entire test. Some of these are going to be on both the essay revision, and some of these are going to be on the editing questions, and some of them are going to be on one or the other. For example, the reference questions tend to only be on the essay revision, whereas the agreement questions tend to be on the essay editing questions. But because because both of those deal with pronouns, I don't teach them as a separate skill. I teach them in the same show because it's all talking about how to use pronouns well. The fact that the students are going to get those questions in 2 different parts of the test doesn't really matter to them. All right, so there's a couple things. I'm going to actually go a little forward in the show let me just do it this way. So this is all discussed in the first video. So you might want to watch that first. So the second part of it, this is going to be questions 20 through 30. Again, I say this at the beginning of a lot of my videos. If you are new to the TSI test, you don't know anything about it, this is probably not going to be your best place to start. There is an overview video that goes through the test in a very general way, and this is more of a deep dive. This is like, okay, I understand the test. Now I want to look at specific questions and how to prepare students for specific questions. Just an FYI, you can certainly watch the video if you want to, but if you don't know much about the test, this might be a good opportunity for you to go back and learn some of those basics. But if you're familiar with the test and you watch the first part, which talked about the essay revision, which is the sort of sample student essay with the 4 questions attached, this is going to be the rest of that section, which is questions 20 through 30. And I repeated this slide in here. And what this actually is, let me move this little box here so we can see a little better. These are live links. So when you find the slideshow in the Canvas course, these will link to slideshows that you can use to teach these skills. I will say the top 3 are the ones that have the most questions attached to it. And especially for some reason, pronoun agreement is something that they really like to talk about. But there is always going to be comma splice, and that's going to be throughout the test. There's going to be some of those that are covered on the essay revision, and they're going to be covered on the editing. Dangling modifiers, there was only one in the sample packet given by the College Board, but sometimes one question is the difference between passing and not passing, so why not cover it? Now, here's the thing I want to say about active versus passive voice and parallelism. If you look at the sample packet put out by College Board that has the sample questions, they don't really cover active voice and passive voice or parallelism. That said, I find it really hard to believe that something put out by College Board is not going to talk about parallelism and passive and active voice. So I included them. If you have the time to reinforce these with your students, I think it's a good use of time. If they don't happen to encounter a question like this on the TSI, they surely will encounter it on the SAT. So I don't think it's a waste of time to go over those. But if you are in a time crunch, if you're looking at doing a much shorter intervention and having much less time with the students, these are the top 3 that I would do. Coordination and subordination, I have a little note down here that deals with this. This is not a directly tested skill. They're not going to say coordinate these ideas, subordinate these ideas. The reason that I include a slideshow on it is I believe that that's kind of the foundation of sentence structure. So I think if students understand how ideas are put together in the sentence, they understand when it's appropriate to have coordinate ideas and when it's appropriate to take an idea and subordinate it to the other. I think if they can gain an awareness of that's going to help them overall. It's going to help their writing on the essay part. It's going to help them make better choices in the essay revision questions. So But no, there's not a question that uses the terms coordination and subordination. So I just wanted to explain that in case you're like, why did she include this? There's no questions that ask about this specific skill. I think it's a good foundational skill. And if you have the time, I think it's something that would be great to talk about. If students could start to have conversations about when it's appropriate to have ideas in coordinate ideas joining with a coordinate conjunction versus when it's a better choice to take the idea and make it into subordinating clause, I think that would be a great set of tools for the students to have at their disposal. That said, I know sometimes time is of the essence when you're doing these interventions. Okay, so each one of these links to a slideshow. When you click on it, it will force you to make a copy. But that's good because then it's going to be yours to use, to change, to fix, to take things in and out of. And I'll show you a couple of what the slideshows look like closer to the end of the video. What I'm actually going to do for the rest of this video is just go through sample questions. And the sample questions are also included in all these longer slideshows. But I reasoned that if I went through each one of those areas in tremendous detail, then this video would be really long. And I don't know about you, but it's hard for me to click on a video that's longer than 15 minutes. Okay. So this is the way a comma splice error, I'm going to send myself away there. Okay, this is the way a comma splice error question is going to look like on the TSI. This is the editing questions where a portion of the sentence is underlined and the students have to decide whether or not they want to revise it. Now, if they don't want to revise it, they're always going to pick choice A. So if you look at choice A and you say there's no change, that's what it means. It's different on the SAT. I think they just literally says the word no change, but on the TSI, it's just reprinted. That's just something to tell the kids, to make them aware of, because they're used to seeing it one way on the PSAT and then they see it a different way on TSI. And even those little things can sometimes throw them off. So this is an example. The problem here is it is a comma splice error, probably one of the most frequent errors I personally see, that they tend to jam together those independent clauses separating with just a comma. So this one is an area that I think is extremely worth going through because it is also on STAR, it is also on SAT, it is a skill that for whatever reason they love to test. So I think it's worth the time to start exposing the students to it. So this is what it would look like. So of course, then included in that is also a little bit of subordination and coordination, because the correct answer to this is going to be, this is taking this clause and actually making it into a subordinating conjunction. That's why I recommended teaching that. But this is the correct answer is going to be choice D. Children who are taught by precept rather than by example do not tend to adopt their parents' values. This is the only one if you put it in there. And I'm going to go through these kind of fast because this is for teachers. It is not for students, so I don't feel like I need to explain the answers to you. So that is, you can pause this if you want to and take a little extra time to look at it. But I'm not going to explain this to you like you're a student because you're not. Okay. So the dangling modifier sample question is this, for some reason, is one of those that students just don't see. When they look at a dangling modifier, it sounds okay to them. Having no idea for a topic, their paper remained unwritten. They don't see how this is a dangling modifier, how it's not, it sounds like the paper has no idea for a topic. So sometimes they will struggle with this one. They'll struggle to see that it's wrong. And of course, if they don't think it's wrong, they're going to pick A. I don't think this is a question that's on repeatedly, but I still think it's worth them knowing how to do it. Because again, I think every little question and point helps on the TSI. But having no idea for a topic, of course, the correct answer is this is the only one that puts the modifier in the right place. And so I do have a slideshow. I know this is kind of low. It's supposed to be pointing at C. It looks a little low there. This is the only one that has the modifier having no idea for a topic close to what it's modifying. And I do have a slideshow on dangling modifier. I used it this year with my TSI class, and I thought that it actually went pretty well. The students who were in class seemed to understand it. So that is one that, again, students don't tend to see what's wrong with it. Okay. All right. Pronoun agreement. Interesting thing about pronoun agreement. First of all, I have no idea why. This is something that has been on PSAT, SAT, and TSI to a really kind of disproportionate coverage. There's usually a few questions, and when you think about the fact that there's only going to be 11 questions, and think that 3 of them or 4 of them might be pronoun agreement questions is pretty surprising to me. But what I have noticed, this is kind of interesting. I have noticed that they're getting away from the gendered pronouns. They're getting away from pronouns where it's like you're matching she with a female name that came before. They're kind of getting away from that, which I think is a really good thing. They're also not doing indefinite pronouns, which is a great thing because indefinite pronouns are a real pain in the neck to teach. If you want to teach them, go ahead. But I wish we would just get rid of them and stop agreeing some singular, some plural, because it's a big pain in the neck. So what you're going to see with your agreement is you're going to see what you have here, which is agreeing a thing with something like its or their. You're not really going to see the gendered pronouns anymore. And I think that, depending on your view, we can all agree that's probably a pretty good idea. So this one is needs to be changed because it has to agree singular. So you might want to have those conversations with students, like the name of a city is always going to be a singular. Something like a unit like the Army, that's going to be singular. So you'll have those kinds of conversations, and you won't have to deal with the indefinite pronouns agreeing with a certain gender, or a certain singular or plural, because that's a real pain in the neck. Okay. Active versus passive voice. Again, I included this even though I didn't see any questions in the materials that the College Board put out. I just don't believe that they're not going to actually test on this. So I think it's worth doing if you have the time. The correct answer to that one would be B. Okay. Left his vegetables. That makes that active voice, which is usually what usually you want to see. Active voice is the correct choice. You don't want to see passive voice. Parallelism, same thing. Again, none of the sample questions were there, but I feel like this could be a revision question in the essay section. It could have faulty parallel structure. So I think it is absolutely worth talking about. I don't think it'll be a waste of your time if you go over this with your students. And then the last thing is coordination and subordination. And I've already talked to you about how this is not directly tested, but I think it's kind of worth it. And that's what this is kind of an interesting question because it incorporates knowledge of comma splice errors and knowledge of subordination. Even if the student doesn't have the language for that, even if they're not able to say, haha, that's a comma splice and I'm going to subordinate it. It would be great if they had that kind of command of the writing terminology, but even if they don't, they can probably get this correct through instinct and through understanding concise writing. But this is technically what this is. We have to fix it because it's a comma splice error, and the best way to fix it, the correct response, is to subordinate this. And usually on these revision questions, like which is the best possible revision, typically speaking, the answers tend to be subordination, not coordination. That's like a generalization, but that's been my experience. So those are sample questions, just to give you a flavor of that. Working again, I'm making this in June of 2021, so I'm still in the process of developing more questions and materials for the Canvas course. So hopefully by the time people are seeing this, there's like tons and tons of options for you to use with your students. So this is, again, the same slide as I had before. I put it in there a couple times just because I did put together these slideshows, and these are more student-friendly. As you can tell, the materials that I've been using in the course, a lot of them are more geared towards teachers who are learning how to prep students for this test. These are actually ones that you can use with your students. So I'm going to show you. So if you click on this, it'll force you to make a copy. I don't want to make a million copies, so I'm just going to show you a couple that I pulled up. So this is mine on faulty parallelism. So it is very much, I put my slide in there. I'm not trying to be vain, but I do like getting credit for the work that I do. However, when you're presenting to your students, you can totally take the slide out. You do not need to keep it in there. There is a slide in the end that I'm going to ask you to keep in, but this slide you can take out. But this also has my email address if you want to contact me. I always put the objectives on there just because, like, if you're ever doing a lesson for your, in your class, and they're checking and they're saying, are you, showing your objectives? Are you making those objectives known to the students? The TSI objectives are there. You could also link them to STAR objectives if that was something that works for your class. So what this does is, this is an example. I'm not going to go through this entire one with you, but this is a way to teach parallelism with students. I just go through. I've also included exercises, so you can do little formative checks along the way. So this is kind of the format I use. The slideshows all look different because I always make things look different because I just enjoy that. But these give you a couple of different exercises within it, so the students aren't just passively receiving information. I always have to be mindful of that myself, that I'm making sure I stop and check in on the students. So it kind of tells them what parallelism is first, and then it talks about faulty parallelism. And a lot of these are timed. So let me show you what this looks like when I present it. It's timed with clicks. So like I'll say, here's your coordinating conjunction, and here are the two structures that do not match. Because I think when you start to point it out to the students, they see, even if they don't know that this is an adverb and this is a prepositional phrase, because they're probably not going to know that, at least mine don't. They know that they don't look the same. They know that there's something different about them. So if you can get the students to isolate the parallel problem, the unparalleled elements, then they can usually fix it. So then I always say, well, here's, and then this is so just to let you know, if you're kind of teaching parallel structure for the first time, or maybe I was really shaky on parallel structure when I started teaching. I didn't even know what it was. So this also kind of walks you through it. The first structure is an adverb. The second is a noun. They're probably not going to know that, but that's okay. That they can tell they don't look the same. And then how do we fix this? And this goes through a couple of the deftly and stylishly outlined. And so then again, it shows the students how they're now the same. And then both are adverbs. In this case, they happen to be ly verbs. And then I always say that there's more than one way to fix it, with deftness and pizzazz. So that just shows them that, and they're both nouns now. So that's something that, again, so if you see all these different circles, a lot of these are on clicks. So if that annoys you, if you don't like having them on clicks, you can take the animation out if you copy it. Okay, I give them the steps. So I don't want to really go through the whole thing, but these are very student-friendly slideshows that you can use with students. And I always go through the concept first, explain the concept to the students. And then I always show how this will manifest on the test so that they can see what the questions look like. Okay. And then I usually put a red arrow, but for some reason I put a green check mark on this one. And so these are just sample questions that you can look at. A lot of these I got from online. I tried to be very good about giving credit to my sources. So there's a slideshow for every single one of those concepts. Then those will be in the TSI or in the Canvas course. Hopefully in a way that's easy to find. If you're looking for something, you're like, I can't find those slideshows that you talked about, just please drop me an email. If you use my slideshows, I will ask that you keep this last slide in place, because I actually get these slides from a place called, these slideshows, I am not this talented, just be aware of that. I get these from a place called Slides Carnival. A lot of teachers know about this, so I'm not necessarily saying anything that's super cutting edge, but they do a lot. People use them for free, but they do want the credit. So I have kept this credit slide in all those. So please keep that in yours as well, just to maintain integrity. But yes, the one where I say, hello world, you can definitely take that one out. That's just me wanting to get credit for the work that I've done, but I don't need to get credit with your students. That's really okay. All right. So then again, I have them this one's on active versus passive voice. It's going to be very similar. It'll explain the concept to them. And then it will show them later how that manifests in different questions. So if you like these, by all means, use them. Some of you may have a much better way of teaching these concepts to your students. And if that's the case, you need to tell me what those are so that I can do that too. Okay. So anyway, that is all for this slideshow. This takes us to the end of the multiple choice. So I have videos for all the entire test at this point now, and the essay. So hopefully, if you don't know anything about the TSI, if you take a little bit of time out to watch these videos, you can. If watching videos isn't your thing, and maybe this is the first video you watch, you're like, I can't stomach watching any more of these, reach out to me. I'll go over it with you if you would. I'm at Thomas Jefferson and just was named the academic dean at Thomas Jefferson. So I'm in this new position. So I am trying to help everybody in any way that I can, because I know that this test can be kind of a pain in the neck. So let me know if you have any questions, and hopefully this has been helpful. And if you have any breakthroughs or great ideas, I do ask that you share them with me. Thank you and have a wonderful day.